Hello and welcome back for another video from Old Frames Gaming. This video is going to feature round 2 from our recent July meetup at Dragon's Den. It'll be showcasing myself on Psychatog versus David on his survival opposition list. Let's take a look at the decks. First up, we're going to take a look at David's list. He was on survival opposition for this particular meetup. We featured this deck on the channel before, and it's a very formidable list. Lots of moving pieces here, lots of choices to make, tons of controlling elements. But as you'll see from some of the gameplay, and this is a bit of a spoiler alert, there are times when this thing can go full on aggro and just run you over. I'm a big fan of this list, although I don't know if I'm competent enough to play it. But David has done incredibly well with this, and I admire his skill and gameplay with it. With that, let's take a look at my Psychatog list. And here we have the Psychatog deck that I played on the night. This is probably my favorite deck to play in Premodern. It just has a lot of the elements that I enjoy in this game. Between the creature removal suite, a little bit of discard, some counter spells to help control what's going on, and then really good finishers and some card draw. This particular deck, I opted to include a little bit more counterspells. I opted to add a couple of foils and circular logics. And then I also stuck with Cunning Wish in order to grab things out of the sideboard that might be useful from time to time, like Hydra Blast or Blue Elemental Blast, Hibernations, and Shadow Rift to finish off games. Engineered Plague is always a pretty good choice. I think I took this deck 1 week and didn't bring that and regretted it greatly. So I'm not going to let that happen again. Sabo's Web, of course, in there to help hedge against things like Oath, where they have Wastelands, Rashadan Ports, things of that nature. All around, it's a pretty fun deck. Let's jump into the gameplay and see how this round worked out. All right. And joining up with the players here, I'm going to be on the left-hand side of your screen, and David is going to be on the right. David won the die roll for game 1, so he is going to open up for us. And he's going to lead off on Forest into Findhorn Elves, and then pass the turn back over to me. So it's kind of hard to tell exactly what I got in my hand in there, but it looks like I had at least one mana leak. I start us off on a snow-covered island because I couldn't find enough old frame islands in order to just have regular islands, so I just stuck with what I had, and it just happened to be all snow-covered lands. So passing the turn back over to David, he finds another forest and lands a Survival of the Fittest. So he's putting all the pieces together here. He passes the turn back over to me. I find a Polluted Delta, and I'm studying what to do here because it could very easily get out of control. I believe in passing the turn back, David is going to activate his Survival of the Fittest on the end of my turn, discarding a Wall of Blossoms for a Squee Goblin Nabob. Of course, Squee is great in this deck because every upkeep you get to return it back to your hand and just discard it again. So David untaps and takes his draw. Squee, of course, is in his hand. It looks like he probably found a Birds of Paradise there. So forest number 3 comes down. We're going to activate that survival again and go find something more valuable than Squee. David finds a Basking Root Walla and then activates Survival of the Fittest, and then using the Madness cost plays Basking Root Walla for free. But he still gets that activation, so he's going to look for something else here. And it's another Basking Root Walla. And just like that, he's got an army of lizards. Activating it that second time, he goes and finds a Birds of Paradise. And then plays it. At the end of David's turn, I'm going to go looking for a land. I find another snow-covered island. At the end of his turn, I play an accumulated knowledge to draw a card. Alright, so now I've found a snow-covered swamp to go along with the islands here. I'll pass the turn back over to David. Squee triggers and he returns it to his hand, and then in his draw step takes a look at a new one off the top. David manages to find an island of his own. And it looks like he's coming across into the red zone with a couple of lizards. Now these guys can pump up to become 3/3s, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of one of them. David's going to pump the other one and crash in for 3, sending me down to 16. He's then going to chuck that squee again to go looking for something else. He's got lots of choices. This deck has answers for nearly every situation. It's pretty cool. We find another lizard to replace the one I got rid of. And so we're going to activate survival and go searching again and play that thing for free. We find another bird of paradise, which we're going to play. And David has gone from 0 to 60 real quick in this game. Alright, untap, upkeep, take a look at the new one off the top. We found another island. At this point, I'm kind of struggling to find ways to control this board. So David gets his turn back, returns that squee, and gets a new one off the top. And he sends the lizards back into the red zone. I find another smother. So we managed to get rid of one of them. He's just coming across for one this time. David played City of Brass. And we're going to go searching up another creature now that we've discarded Squee again. And we find Tradewind Rider. So this allows him to tap 2 untapped creatures to return a permanent to owner's hand. But I had the counterspell for that one, which was the absolute correct move. With those 2 birds of paradise and that elf just laying around, that thing could get real dangerous. David finds Winter Orb, which is probably going to do me in this game. I just got to take a look at one off the top. Nothing there is going to help, so I decide to scoop it up and look for brighter days in Game 2. Alright, we'll let these players shuffle up and sideboard, and we'll join them in Game 2. Alright, starting Game 2 off, I'm going to be on the play. So I open up with a Polluted Delta, go to 19, and go looking for a land. Didn't find it in the top half, but we did in the bottom. Opening up on a snow-covered swamp that likely is going to indicate a duress in hand. So we're going to see what's going on. Possibly get rid of something that's going to help David out here. So he's got opposition, land, creature, creature, survival, creature, opposition. So we're going to go ahead and take that survival the fittest out of his hand so he doesn't get that engine online so fast. Passing to David, he opens up on a Yavimaya Coast into a Findhorn Elves and then gives the turn back to me. So I find a snow-covered island. We're going to Diabolic Edict. Get rid of that elf. I'm trying to stifle his mana here a little bit, but he just finds another elf and plays it anyway. Now we're going to smother that elf. but I missed my land drop for the turn. David finds a basic forest, plays it, and then rolls into a wall of roots, and then into a Quirion Ranger. At this point, I am struggling on mana. But we find a smother for the elf. The pace of this game is going a little faster, which is kind of scary. So David manages to find a wall of blossoms and draws an additional card. But we're both kind of stuck on mana a little bit. He's got that wall of roots he can lean on to find another Quirion Ranger and land it. So now I've found a second island, which is good. It opens up some counterspell play for me. I decide to go ahead and deploy Psychatog. David takes a look at the fresh one off the top. He's added 2 to his mana pool. He finds another wall of blossoms. Still looking for another land or some action of some kind. He's going to use the ability on that ranger to return that forest and replay it for a second green. So now we've got a bird of paradise. He adds a green off the wall of roots. And we have a basking root walla. I decide to gush on the end of the turn, draw a couple of cards using that alternate casting cost on there. Replay my island. I can't do much yet because he's got an army of walls, so it's going to be difficult to get through those things unless I have a wonder in the yard, which would give it flying, or if I go and get Shadow Rift. So we're kind of at a stalemate at this point. David adding seemingly all the mana in the world. Now he's going to try to land this opposition. But luckily, I have the foil for that. One of the few free counterspells in this particular format, since we don't get access to Force of Will. But in this spot, foil's just as good. Plus it feeds the graveyard for Psychatog later on, so it's not so bad. So David finds another Findhorn Elves and plays it. Passes the turn back over to me. I'm going to go ahead and play Opt. Take a look at the top card. Memory serves, I believe I put that card on the bottom and drew off the top, which I think was a Polluted Delta, and it is. So David taking a look at his hand here, trying to decide how he wants to move forward. He's found another opposition. He's going to use that Quirion Ranger to untap that bird and replay to get his blue mana for opposition. So I'm thinking about this here. I had another foil, which empties my hand, unfortunately, but I have to keep that thing off the board. Then he goes ahead and plays his Survival of the Fittest. Alright, so we're going to crack Polluted Delta on the end of the turn, go searching for another island. David's looking through my graveyard there to see what all is there, likely counting them up to see how many buffs I can give to that Psychatog if I go ahead and just empty it. I go ahead and pass the turn back over to David because One card in hand, it's likely not an action spell of any kind. It's likely something reactive. So David takes a look at a new one off the top of his library, and he sends a lizard over into the red zone. So at this point, he's just trying to bait cards out of my graveyard in order to keep that low. So I just remove a couple so that I can take down the Root Walla. David finds a forest, plays it, and passes me the turn. At the end of the turn, I find Intuition, which is great here because I believe I go and get 3 accumulated knowledges, which is essentially going to turn that into an Ancestral Recall, which is exactly what we need here because I have no other cards in hand. We got to get something going. Shout out to my cousin Chris for the Intuition. He got that for my birthday a couple years back. And I have really enjoyed playing the card and am super appreciative. So thank you. Alright, so we're going to open the turn and we have an accumulated knowledge in hand. I decide I'm just going to hold on to it for the time being and pass the turn back over to David. I can't really get through that line of creatures with my Psychatog at this point. So I'm just looking for an opening. David finds a Genesis, which he's going to promptly discard to his Survival of the Fittest and go looking for something else. We're going to go find Squee, which he's likely going to discard and then go find something else. Finds another lizard off the top, which we discard and go find something else. Another lizard off the top that we discard and go find something else. I think everybody's getting the idea here. So I'm just kind of studying my hand here, knowing that at the end of the turn I'm going to have to draw 3 more cards and see if we can get something rolling in the right direction. I'm already down a game here. One more in round 1, match 1. Not so great for me. So David finds Mystic Snake. That one's tough because it's a counter spell on a creature. So I decided to let that go and then pass the turn back because I need to hold up enough mana that I can actually get the accumulated knowledge off and be able to back that up with a counterspell, knowing that he has that Mystic Snake in hand. So now David's found a Gaia's Cradle, so he's got 1,000,000 mana. Now counting up our creatures here, so that's 3, 6, 8. 8 creatures, so 8 green in the pool. One of it, we're going to discard our Squee and go looking for something else to cast. We find a Deranged Hermit. Pretty fun card. I've cast a few of them in my time. But I have the counterspell to answer that Deranged Hermit because things at this point on this board are just way out of control. But that's also going to bait that Mystic Snake out of David's hand. So he's going to get his elf and his 4 squirrels. Just digging those out of his deck box there. Alright, Alright, so I managed to find another polluted delta. At this point, we're going to go ahead and accumulated knowledge. And it looks like I'm going to draw a bunch of cards. David managing to find his fourth squirrel there. Not looking great. I'm going to go ahead and add a blue and return 2 islands to pay the alternate cost on Gush. And we're going to draw a couple of cards. I'm going to go ahead and replay one of those islands. We're adding 2 mana here. Oh, 3, I'm sorry, for Engineered Plague. I believe I named Elf here, so every one of those is going to go away. And I go ahead and pass the turn back. So David returns Squee on his upkeep, untaps his creatures there. I'm still at a pretty healthy life total for right now, so that's good news for me. So David goes ahead and activates that Survival of the Fittest again. And he's found a Volrash Shapeshifter, which for those of you who may not be aware, allows him to do some pretty wild stuff. He can essentially transform his deck into full English breakfast, which I'm not exactly sure of the particulars on that, but I know that it allows him to basically mill out my deck or fling a creature at me that is exceptionally large in order to kill me. But instead this turn, David opts to come across with the 2 lizards, which he pumps up for a bunch. I believe they're 3/3s, so yeah, I took 6 damage there. And he goes ahead and plays out another survival. I decide I'm going to annul that, because why not? It's not going to do me any good anywhere else. Alright, so we found another island. And I pass the turn back to David. Just can't seem to find what I need this game. And here we're discussing it. And he's going to be able to hit for a million billion. So between that and the Hermit Feb, or the Feb combo in David's deck, I just opt to go ahead and concede. He's got me. It was a great matchup. I enjoy playing against David. So I go down in flames 0-2 in round 1, which is fine. This is all good fun. For everybody out there watching and still listening to us, we thank you for tuning in. We would ask that if you enjoy this type of content that you would like and subscribe. It doesn't cost anything to do that. If you enjoy old school content in general, we ask that you head on over to the Orb. That's run by our good friend Joe. Give him a look. Joe does some really, really great work over there. Super entertaining, and looks at a lot of different formats revolving around the old school community. Thanks again for tuning in, y'all. Have a great one, and join us in the next one.